Hello.
Hello, David.
Hello,
How are
welcome
you?
David. Good. How about you?
I'm doing good. How are you both doing?
Great, awesome. It's such a huge pleasure to talk to you. So we've been waiting. So very excited.
Great. I'm excited too.
Yeah, gorgeous. Okay, so just David, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a huge pleasure, like I just already said, it's a huge pleasure and gift for us to have you this discussion today, and we are sure we're gonna cover lots of interesting subjects today. You are just an inspiration for us that such young and beautiful people like you more and more start to work in such fields like very old and forgotten science of light astrology. And it's inspiring to know that the young generation is working in this field in such professional way like you do. And you are one of those who are actively bringing this knowledge to all of us. And your astrology forecasts, readings are very insightful, uplifting, and teaching. You are a talented special astrologer who are able not only read the path of the stars, but also let the listeners to dwell together with you, discovering it together for themselves. And you have that wonderful ability to sense the energies and erve them into matter, into material worlds, which is really very difficult sometimes just to shape your experiences and talk them into words and just express everything. So David does personal and also weekly astrology forecasts. He also does tarot readings, intuition reading, and many, many more things. So we are just encouraging our listeners to go to check his web pages, which are theleoking.com and also inclusiveastrology.com. And also David does music. He is professional DJ, and you also can go and check his music by spiritualhousemusic.com. So, David, before dwelling into your biography and asking you some things, how everything started for you, maybe you can share some current events which are happening now for you. Maybe you have some current works or projects, or maybe some near future plans which you would love to share with us.
Oh, well, first of all, I want to say thanks for having me on the show, and that was quite an intro, so thank you so much. What I have going on right now is I have an app on Apple and Android phones at those stores, and also a premium website called leoking.lookstack.com, where I do the daily horoscopes, and you pay a monthly subscription, and you get your 12 sun sign horoscopes each week. You get a weekly intuitive reading, a weekly tarot reading, and a daily astrology reading. And I also send notifications to your phone. So every day, 3 to 4 times a day, based off where the planets are, you get a notification to kind of alert you, hey, this is what's going on. And so I've really tapped into technology and making astrology much more new age and with technology in the times.
Wow, that's awesome. And also you have been talking about that positive news project, like you have been thinking about the having some news, like telling people some positive news, like we see only usually in the mainstream, we see some, not very positive things, but you had idea to make your own positive news project about astrology. So how is that idea going on?
Well, yeah, I started Leo King News, but right now I have so much going on. I do 23 videos a week. I do readings for people around the world. I DJ at clubs across all over Southern California, even anywhere in America. And I create my own content. So I have a reality show I developed on YouTube following me around. So there's so much going on. But at the beginning of the year, I have an awesome team that's being developed to be able to help me more with the basic stuff so I can do more of Leo King News and, more importantly, do more presentations. I'm going to do a lot more presentations based off history and showing what happened to astrology, because I think a lot of people got misled into what happened to astrology, and I want to tell the story of what really happened. So I've been doing a lot of research, of course, through the Catholic Church, Rome, Mesopotamia, and following the story and helping people understand what happened to astrology. And that's going to be my main focus in 2016, especially that Saturn's in Sagittarius, and with Neptune squaring it in Pisces. I feel that this is the best time more than ever to get out the right information regarding the religions and astrology and occult knowledge that was suppressed, and make sure that people really start to see the story correctly.
Yeah, it's very important that you are synchronizing the things. You also work with syncretism, like you just mentioned, uniting astrology and history together into one to help people to remember. That's very beautiful. So,
Mm.
David, maybe you would love to share your biography, when all interest in the esoteric arts and sciences such as astrology, tarot began for you. Maybe there was some influence of some teachers or family, or maybe some major influential event for you.
Well, to be very honest with you, I got into astrology because I used to like to talk to girls. So it came through talking with women. Like every chick I dated, I looked up on AOL. This was back with 56K, and I'd look up, the astrology of the girlfriends I had. And that fascinated me a lot. And I then became a raver in the rave scene, and I lost myself on the dance floor. I was following one of my idols, I guess you could say, was Timothy Leary. He was the man who he was a philosopher and a professor at Harvard that studied psychiatry and psychology, and he advocated the use of the magic mushroom and LSD. So at 20 to 21 years old, I experimented with lots of different ceremonies dealing with LSD, shrooms. And during those experiences, especially combining that with music, it opened up everything that I needed to know about astrology. I started doing readings for people. I just started I'm going to be very honest with you. All the information of astrology just naturally came to me. It just was already there. It was like I didn't read books. I didn't, it was a natural thing. And I think a lot of that came from learning about channeling. And I found a lot of resources regarding channeling, which Bringers of the Dawn by Barbara Marciak is one of my favorite books. And I really connect with Palladian roots. I started doing past life regressions and was able to start to see all my past life regressions regarding spirituality, war, and connecting a lot with war and Egyptian, philosophies in war. I also went to the Middle Ages in war, and then I actually started doing future life regressions and started to see myself in the Palladian star fleet. So it really actually started to connect all the dots for me to realize that this time in history is kind of a weird moment that I came to be the bridge of all the past lives that I have done and the future lives of being in this higher vibrational, bringing light onto the planet and changing the frequency on the planet. So that kind of everything was predetermined and pre-planned and preset, and all I had to do was wake up to it. It wasn't that I needed to go to school or I needed to learn from an astrologer or that I needed to look at life in kind of this, I don't know how to describe it, but that's not the way life works. Like you are already embedded with everything, ready to go. And it's whether or not you wake up and put all the dots together or not. And I did. And once I did, it just spiraled out of control like a vertex.
Right.
And everything came to me. And when I do astrology, it's not even me doing the astrology. Like I just feel like I'm just the conduit of it. I'm just, the in
Yeah.
between.
You opened
So
that
that's
portal. You got hooked through your own experience, and that's what we say in our shows a lot is so important. That's how you lock the knowledge in. It's through your own experience only, So that I guess we could say astrology is like a drug as well, When we learn from it, you just get hooked and you go deeper and deeper, and the wheels don't, they don't stop spinning. So there's always something new at any second you look at it, and yeah, I guess you could really say astrology is a drug, and maybe empathy is the gateway drug for it.
very true. Very true. And I want to say one more thing was I always had a fascination with the unknown. I knew there was something weird that everybody on Earth had no idea why they were here and what the hell was going on. And that made me nervous. That gave me anxiety. And that made me know that there is something wrong. And that knowing that something was wrong, ever since I was young, compelled me to keep researching for more. And that's when I ended up at Timothy Leary, who brought up a lot of kind of like drop out. But see, I knew that you're not going to change the world by disrupting it in such a way that causes chaos. I think that the way to change the world now is to hold a new frequency and just hold it. And eventually people will connect with that frequency, kind of like a radio station that just keeps emitting it over and over and over again. It's kind of like a broken record. Eventually people are going to hear the message. But if you try to be abrasive, or if you overly, push it in kind of a chaotic kind of, I can't describe it. If anybody who's an astrologer out there, kind of a Uranian way, kind of like, chaos and like the shock and awe, I think that can become a little too hard for the society we're in today. So I take the approach of giving the knowledge in a fun and positive and exciting way, but not causing too much chaos to where people won't take me seriously. Because unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people out there who don't take a lot of astrologers seriously because they kind of come off kooky, or they kind of come off a little too abrasive, or they kind of come off a little bit too intense for people to accept the information. So there's a fine line of how this information needs to get out there, and it's very tricky.
Yeah, and the most important is just to be your authentic self, and because of that, you're able to, share that knowledge, become a portal of that, like you just did. And also, you don't need just to go to live to the mountains, like many of our astrologers just go and leave everything and go. But you working in this society, you are trying to change something here, because there are lots of things to do here and to work here.
And of course, stopping the division, that is kind of what David said. We don't need to divide anymore. We don't need to say, you're right, I'm wrong, or the other way around. That doesn't really matter anymore. It's our experience that we have, and showing together and bringing that together, and building that big picture. Just look at the zodiac wheel, the diagram of the zoo. When we having a discussion, we're just talking about the ion that's spinning on the discus there, so we're seeing that from our angle where we are. And just to go through the whole broken record, like you said, and taking that all in and seeing the whole spin of the ion, having a real discussion all together with all animals on the wheel, we're coming much closer now.
Yeah.
Definitely agree with that.
So maybe you just can talk now about the healing of us, because recently, almost, I guess, half of the year already, especially this last few months, we just experiencing this energy of healing. Like, as I feel like planet itself is healing through us. So what can you share here? What's happening? Because we see also many of egos are just revealing themselves. People are just cleansing and healing, and we can notice some, real faces of our friends. And so what are happening above us in astrology? Why this energy of healing is happening now?
This is a very long answer that I'm going to bring as fast and quick as I can. First of all, I totally am a 2012er. So, we went through a galactic shift point in 2012. And having that happen, number one, as a human being, and to be able to go from one story to another in a galactic story is extreme. It's shocking to the nervous system. It's shocking to our minds. It's shocking to our soul. It really is not a very easy experience, but at the same time, it is very exhilarating and exciting. So I think we have spent the last 3 years with the Pluto-Uranus square, which has been challenging not only our nervous system, but challenging the exposing of this new paradigm that we're all coming into, which has been very difficult to deal with, all while we had the most intense Scorpio transit of our lives. Saturn was in Scorpio from October of 2012 until just recently, September of 2015, where we had a solar eclipse in Scorpio. We also had that with Venus in 2014. We also had the North Node transit with Saturn in Scorpio, while there was also the solar eclipse. That was the most intense Scorpio transit we could have had, because the last Saturn and Saturn or the last Saturn in Scorpio transit had Pluto, but it did not have the North Node. So this was very difficult because we all got cleared out. We all got pretty much blasted. Scorpio is venom. And in many ways, we all got stung. We all got, we all basically had to face our own deaths. And I think our souls all are being reborn in many ways. And this healing that has come in recently has a lot to do with this nodal axis that's changed into Virgo and Pisces. And with the nodes coming into this space, we've got Jupiter in Virgo, and we've got Neptune in Pisces, and we've got Chiron, of course, in Pisces. But this is a very, very rare configuration of healing. But on the more kind of weird end of things, this is forcing us to kind of get back into reality. I think all of us got taken off reality and got taken to the edge of our spiritual universes within ourself with that Pluto-Uranus square and with all the other aspects that we had throughout the last 3 years. So this is forcing us to kind of come back to reality after being blasted, after being transformed, after being extremely deathly experienced darkness. I'll be honest, there was a darkness that fell upon us all and an exposing of who we really are. And the healing is, where do we go now? It's like everybody's like, okay, we have to come back to reality. Life is not about just talking about New Age and all these things. We actually have to be here and stay here and do things with it. And I think the healing process is kind of letting go of this very out there, very lost, and very confusing spiritual world that we all got excited to come into. But with Jupiter in the North Node, this is saying that we have to get back to reality. I always give the nodes all the credit. The North Node says where to go. The South Node is the stern of the ship. It's don't go that way. And with Neptune and Chiron and Pisces here, this is a scary moment where people are going to lose themselves too far and get too caught up in the waves or the ocean and get lost at sea. This is also while Saturn is squaring this spot in Sagittarius, where people are going to go on quests into either the wrong or the right places. And so the healing is taking place if you can stay in reality and do something very Virgo-like, very practical, and make sure you stay that way. People are going to lose their beliefs crazy right now, because Saturn square Neptune is very belief structure, especially in Sagittarius with Saturn, and Neptune is in its natural home. Delusions are going to come up more than ever, especially with the South Node, and especially with Chiron there. People are going to create beliefs that do not exist. Like, all the facts are not there. This is all making a T-square up to Gemini, which poor Geminis and poor any Gemini energy is completely cornered. You got Jupiter in the North Node and Virgo cornering it. You got Chiron, Neptune in the South Node and Pisces cornering it. And now you got Saturn opposing it in Sag. So our facts are not clear in life. And so I think the healing is to not get lost and make sure that you stay grounded in reality, that you remember what reality is. Because even though this spiritual revolution is amazing, people could get lost in the wrong corners. I'm already seeing it right now online. People are putting out all this crazy stuff, and they're losing it. They're losing it because they don't know where to go next. And I agree that there is something going on that we don't know, but we all need to heal through being practical and being very Virgo. Virgo is a healing sign as well. It actually heals through more of like connection with Earth and connection with reality and the physical world. And I feel that we're all coming back to ascension symptom healing. And it's important to not go the other way and do ayahuasca ceremonies and do all these things that kind of take you away from reality right now, because it could take you too far. This is kind of scary. And the healing is getting back to Mother Earth, and with the star Regulus now in Virgo, because that changed in 2012, and with the Venus retrograde that was here in 2015 on the star Regulus, that was the moment that said that the new reality is being born, but one where we don't lose our true understanding of life. I think that this is a very scary moment for the world, because people could push a belief that has no factual information or reality behind it and make it true. And that is scary, because that's exactly what happened with churches and things in the past. And we've all seen what that's done, you know? So it's kind of a weird moment, right? I mean, we all have to really be very sure that we review all the information before we get lost, because you don't want to end up in a boat out in the middle of the sea.
Right.
Pisces is a weird sign, and Chiron's there, and Neptune's at home there, and the South Node is here, and we're about to have eclipses here. We just had a solar eclipse in 2015 at 29 degrees of Pisces. Talk about the most lost degree. That's it. So
crazy.
Yeah.
It's a weird time.
Right. I guess that's what we can take away positively, that we're learning through this, all this bullshit on the internet, that you really have to go back to yourself. There's no other way, because people can tell you anything, and only by your own experience verification will you make that step to actually understand it. But one thing I wanted to go back to, which I saw on your interview with Teal Swan, you guys were talking about the 60s and how we already had a movement there, this flower power, freedom and love movement, and how we're now kind of, picking the flowers from the seeds that were put in there, and how at the same time, the division that happens and the forces that are trying to divide us have then broken it up, with a war, and are trying to break it up with war and chaos now again. What are the astrological things there, the 60s and today?
Well, first of all, in the 60s, Pluto and Uranus conjuncted, right? So Pluto, Uranus, and Virgo conjunction. And that was the powerful moment. Whenever you get Pluto and Uranus in any angle or connection, you're going to get wild and radical change. And you're going to get change that hits at the deepest core that you never can come back to. So when Pluto and Uranus conjuncted in the 60s, we could no longer go back to the old whiskey drinking, people who governed the world, who had control in that way. It was like, oh my gosh, there's drugs, there's free love, there's all these things. And that was in Virgo. Interesting enough, that's the change of the day-to-day reality. It's the matrix. Virgo is the reality. So Pluto and Uranus now are squaring and finishing their square after 3 years in Capricorn and Aries. And so the reason why I brought up the 60s and the Pluto-Uranus square now is the challenge of a square is this is the first 90-degree square since the conjunction in the 60s. And whenever you have a 90-degree angle after a conjunction, that's finally when, if you look at the history of whenever the conjunction of those two planets were, it's that ultimate challenge. Can you implement the conjunction? Can we implement the 60s into this world or not? It's where it really starts to show where we thought we were on that right direction, but then it really kind of shows up and shows, oh, wait, there is a structure, right? Capricorn, of a world and governments and, just the fabric of this life that needs to change. And then there's the individual that needs to find its own power. And I think that that's part of the issue, is that people have put too much power in the system opposed to power in themselves. And so it's hard for this flower power 60s revolution reality to come true when you have Uranus and Aries showing everybody that they all need to find power in themselves, that they all need to find power in courage, and that the system that's in place is very disempowering. It's very Capricorn. Capricorn sets rules. And the last time Pluto was in Capricorn was in the 1770s. And so the rules that were set from the 1770s around the world are being challenged now. and they're being challenged from what was brought up in the 60s. And it's at a very weird moment where people are all having to kind of choose a side. Am I going to move towards the free, liberal change of a new world and a new structure? Or am I going to hold on to security and safety of what the last 250 years has given me? Yet, the more people play by the old rules, let's say you go to school, you get a job, and you live your life and you die. In America here, everybody are spending all their money to go to school and there's no jobs. So the Capricorn system is having Pluto here destroy it. It literally will not be the way it is. And so anybody kind of stuck in wanting to see the world and see the world in this old, Capricorn, 1770s idealism is coming into very difficult aspects. And with Uranus and Aries, this is the individual warrior in oneself that has to have the courage not to take down the system, which sometimes I think gets fooled for people with Uranus and Pluto squaring in these signs. But it's the individual that must find courage to step out of the system and reinvent it themselves in their own life. It's not that this whole collective needs to come together and rally together and create some kind of chaos in the streets, even though when Uranus entered Aries, the whole Arab Spring came up, and that was the beginning of these kind of energies. We're also seeing it all over the world with people starting to revolutionize and so forth. But what they don't realize is if they don't have the power in their own individual self, they're never going to go anywhere, because that group, when it gets split up or when they all have to go home and eat their meals with their family and go to Christmas, if they don't have the power in themselves only when they're in the group, they're screwed. That's Uranus and Aries. It's teaching you to find your own power, your own strength, your own will. And so we're at a weird time where that has finally come to its ending point with Uranus and Pluto squaring. And I think everybody has seen that they have to face the world and the system with finding their own power now. It's not like God's going to save the day, and it's not like your next door neighbor's going to do it for you. You have to do it yourself. And that's not easy for people to hear or accept. And that's Uranus and Aries. Uranus is the evolutionary planet that brings you up to higher levels. It rules the heavens. So the only way to get to the heavens is through courage, is through individuality being known, your name, your identity. And if you don't know these things, if you let the Capricorn, the dictator, the Satanist, right, or the government say your identity, you won't make it. You won't find your individual self. So it's about leaving the world that the world told you to be and becoming your own self based off your own identity. And that's how the 60s revolution can come about. That's the test, if that makes sense.
Yeah, really makes sense. And also you talked about the 60s, and for example, to me, 60s and number 6 is like relating to Saturn. Like we see, like Saturn has hexagon with really corresponds to number 6 on its pole. So again, 6 Saturn. And also just had download with Stefan about the science of the astrology. Like Jupiter looks like number 4. Like if we will look at the sign, and if we look at the Saturn, it looks like number 5. So Saturn combines 5 and 6 together into one, like 5 body and like a pentagon and also hexagon, which is happening on the Saturn's pole. So again, 60s, and when you talked about the 60s and how people were waking up, so we just have been trying maybe energetically step out outside of the Saturn box of time, of this box of illusion. So that's why maybe that awakening was happening. So Saturn was involved here. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I always look at Saturn, he's the timekeeper. So wherever Saturn is, that's life. And it's so interesting that we had Saturn and Pluto for the last 3 years in each other's houses. So Saturn rules Capricorn, but Saturn was in Scorpio. Pluto rules Scorpio, but was in Capricorn. So they were shifting and they were in each other's different places. And that was a moment in life where, man, rough. Because Scorpio and Capricorn are not easy. I hate to be honest. They are very tough and very rough. And Pluto and Saturn are the two roughest planets. So when you have them together, not fun. It's not easy. It's very difficult. It cuts down to the barest of your bones. And I think we've all dealt with that. And I think we're stepping out of that to answer your healing question. I just think just with that being over, that's healing enough, because no longer do you have the Grim Reaper on top of you, cutting away your skin and getting to your bones and just having fun, picking at you like a bird, like a crow. It's not fun. And so with Saturn now in Sagittarius, Saturn has some issues. Jupiter is the ruler of Sag, and he's now not as big as Jupiter. The other aspect is Saturn is one more sign from his home. He's an old man who likes to read his book in his study at the top floor of his big mansion, and he's in Sag world that's all over the place. It's got people, it's got crazy blue hair, it's got, parties going off on the corner, and he is not happy. He just wants to get home. That's all he wants to do. He wants to get home. And so this next 2 years, especially with Neptune squaring Saturn, man, talk about reality not really being formidable or understood, because Saturn has a grip on things. The grip is lost. Sag is the explorer, and Saturn now is like having to get off the trail and explore. And so he's not happy. And so we're at a time where reality is going to change extremely. And instead of more of an internal change, it's going to be the external change. And a lot of it is going to be through a lot of things that are weird, unknown, people trying to deceive others. And I think that people need to be very careful, because Saturn is going to do everything he can to try and keep a grip on things, but he's going to have a lot of problems. And he's going to have Jupiter square him again this year in 2016 in Virgo. So Saturn's not happy. He's also going to have the nodes square him soon. He also is going to have the eclipses start to square him. So our reality and this control system of life, even though I don't feel like the world's going to lose control, I think that's more when Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter meet in Capricorn in 2020. But it's more like, watch how people are going to try and hold on to anything they can, and it could be the wrong thing, and you have to learn to surrender and make sure maybe another piece of wood comes in the ocean that's better to hang on to, because it actually will save you. This is not a time to just reach for the first thing you hear, reach for the first thing that's been shown. Exactly. People are talking a lot about this flat earth all over the place, and I'm not going to say I'm right or wrong, because I don't know. But there's a lot of information to look at there. And there's a lot of information to look on both sides, not just one. And people are already starting to believe it. Like, no, the Earth's flat, the Earth's flat. It's like, okay, well, let's take some time here. There's a long time to take here before we really get lost in this, because people are, and you can see the unconscious because they're lost so fast right now, and they believe it without even looking. They're just like, yep, this is it, blah, 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 blah. It's just research. This is a time for research. Saturn's in Sagittarius, and he's heavily aspected. And so the only way for him to get out of this mess is he has to do extreme research. He has to explore deeper. He has to look at lots of facts. And man, this is a shipwreck. Saturn rules ships, and it's squaring Neptune, which is the oceans and tornadoes and tsunamis. And this is a time where, man, it's a shipwreck of all of us, and we're having to see where it's going to take us, and we're a little lost, but it's about making sure when you're lost that you pay attention to what's going on, instead of just, yes, this is it, right? When you walk it, it's like, whoa. Like, have you guys ever watched, it's just like any place. Like, just make sure you know what you're getting into. It might look great. It's like the Wizard of Oz. It looks like it's a wizard, but really it's not, it's like, so this is kind of a weird moment. And Saturn I kind of feel bad for Saturn, to be honest with you. He's not happy at all. This is not good for him. He's going to have a rough 2 years. Rough 2016 for him. And so if you just look at the collective, anybody who's very Saturnian is not going to like this.
Yeah.
Anybody who is mercurial in 2015, so let's say you're ruled by Mercury, had an extremely rough 2015 because Mercury retrograded in all air signs, and it didn't touch anywhere else. So it was also retrograding in its natural home of Gemini and squaring Neptune, which made it extremely difficult, while Mars was in Gemini as well, and the Sun at the same time. So Gemini-ruled people lost their minds this year. 2016 is the year of Saturn-ruled people losing their grip, you know. Because I always like to look at the themes. And if you think of the theme, the number one planet getting the most hit this year will be Saturn. And so it's going to be kind of a weird year because everybody's realities are not going to stay concrete for long. It's going to feel like lily pad jumping for the next couple years here. Like, oh, I'm over here. Oh, it's sinking. I got to move to the next one. And then, you know, and making sure you're not believing in some sort of like idolization of some belief that has no factual, deeper long-term research, you know, like it's kind of like a drug, right? Like, okay, it might be a great drug, but you didn't research it for 5 years and you didn't realize that you could die, you know, like, so the deeper and longer looking at things is so important right now. And I'm scared because in the election process here in America, man, you can already see just how fast a person like Donald Trump can push a belief and people will believe it in 1 second. Just boom, 1 second. It's that fast. It's that fast. It's just like, boom. I could put out next week that, you know, we're all dinosaurs or something. And you know what I mean? I mean, I could just put out anything and say, oh, the reptilian brain stem and blah, 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 and put up a video on the internet and I'll have 1,000 followers who believe we're dinosaurs. Like, you know, so it's a very,
it's
very,
dangerous.
It's a dangerous time. And
dangerous.
And I want to say this, and this kind of goes off astrology, but symbolism, right? Like the Nazi symbol is actually the symbol that was used in Buddhism and Tibetan forever. And we, like, anytime you see that symbol now, all you think about is destruction, death, horrible people. But really, it's a beautiful symbol. Now, Isis, which Isis is the goddess of Egypt. Anytime you hear the word Isis now, it is like negative, you know. It's a very dangerous time because the media and the world now is actually changing beautiful beliefs into negative beliefs. And that's what's scary, is when you get people to believe something that was great and say that it's wrong. That's
that's really bad. All the symbolism is turned upside down, definitely, from colors to, you know, just plain symbolism. All the signs are just completely the opposite.
It is. But the good news, there's always a positive, is look at astrology. See, astrology's dealt with this for 1,000 years or more. So, you know, it's kind of funny to see astrology actually now the right symbolism is coming up. So it's almost like there are some things that are sacrificed in order for some things to come up. So it's kind of a weird moment because I think astrology can take this moment and finally show its true colors for the way that it is. But I think the right people need to step up, and I think that we have to be careful that you know, we don't have people that are out there turning into Donald Trumps with this information, because that's scary. Because then people won't believe it, you know.
Right.
And so it's what a weird time.
It's definitely a process, you know. It's like a photo. You make a picture from a negative, you know. So everybody needs to be aware that it's a process of our consciousness to explore these things together. And letting go and not grabbing onto first floating wood is absolutely important to not get dragged away with the wrong current. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you have to do that always in love and just staying humble and just knowing the path of yours. And so, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very true. It's a weird moment, but I mean, I think we're all coming into some sort of disclosure, because if we look on a higher level, I think we're all waiting for it to kind of get some sort of information. Now, whether this information is correct or not is going to be what we'll all have to determine. So there will be a disclosure. Whether it's real or not will be the answer that I think we all look for. So David Wilcock's coming out. He's been saying, oh, disclosure, disclosure. And I believe, and especially Bashar, I don't know if you guys know him, he's a channeler. Bashar has been coming out and saying 2016, 2016. And as an astrologer, I can say, yeah, Neptune square Saturn, Jupiter square Saturn, Neptune, Chiron, South Node conjunction. Yeah, there's going to be disclosure, but there's going to be some very non-realistic stuff to it. So, or deceiving stuff to it. And the Palladian channels have been saying this for 20 years, that there's going to be a disclosure of some sort, and people are going to follow it like it's just like Jesus walking on water or something. And I think what we're going to notice is that there's going to be a disclosure that's not true, and you have to not buy it. And I think that that's the way to suppress all this stuff. It's like the major last trump card that whatever's going to be played to kind of try and abolish anything else. Like, is this disclosure of whatever's disclosed this 2016, whatever information comes out. And I think that we all have to make sure that we don't buy into believing that that's it,
Yeah. I think it's time to stay humble, I think that word is, if you look at the symbolism, very important, It's the hum and the bell, it's your listening to being the bell and listening to your own vibration, do your own homework, read up on what really happened from different sources, and just be humble and not give in into the distraction that is all around us.
Yeah, and step outside the box of the system, because like David mentioned that, Saturn, we will have lots of, events with Saturn related to Saturn, and Saturn is like a cube, is like a box, so we have to step that. So we know that that's happening now, so we just have to stay focused and just keep that humming of that bell inside of us, and just to face that in pure love instead of that fear.
Well, isn't that Christmassy?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very Christmassy. Yeah. But I think there are very good things coming into 2016. I mean, I believe that we're going to definitely see information come out that we've been wanting to come out. So I think that it's just about how to decipher what's right, what's wrong. And that's, going to be weird. And so I think it'll be a good thing. I also think that people are going to be back into reality and not so... I can't put any description better than ascension symptoms. I think the ascension symptoms of the last 3 years were very difficult for everybody to deal with. And so I believe that 2016 is going to be a year where we can finally start to kind of get back into reality. I think Jupiter in the North Node conjunction is a signal that the universe is giving as much energy as it can, Jupiter in the North Node, to say, hey, let's get you back into reality, everybody. We just did a big construction project on the universe, and we need to get everybody back connected. Sorry, that was a long one. I know it was hard, but we're gonna get you back. And so part of this is for people to not get bored, because Virgo's kind of boring. It's day-to-day life, it's reality, and Pisces is where we lose ourselves in dreams and fantasies and drugs. And this is going to be a time where people get bored with day-to-day life, and this is a time to realize that getting back into a day-to-day routine will actually cure your ascension symptoms. You do not want to go mad or crazy, because Neptune is the planet and the Pisces is the energy that actually rules insanity, is the 12th house. And there's a part with the south node here, Neptune here, and especially Chiron, which you do not want Chiron in Pisces with the north-south node conjunction with an eclipse or something that's going to happen, and be losing your mind by continuing down this lost path. Especially, it's almost like all the spiritual stuff has been shown. So it's not like you need to like keep searching the outer boundaries. This is now time to do the research and get more of the Jupiter stuff, not Neptune. They're different. Jupiter and Neptune are different. Neptune is where we leave reality to find the information. Jupiter is within Saturn's boundary lines to find the information. So it's not like we need to go take drugs to find the info anymore. It's not like we need to, you know, jump out of reality in some sort of sense to find the information. It's all here now. We've gotten everything spiritually we needed. We had Pluto Uranus take us to the edge of the universe. There's no farther that we could go or our human minds would pop. So I think that's what I think people need to realize. And I'm scared because the spiritual community is, you know, they're wanting to keep pushing that Pisces story. Like, let's just keep leaving reality. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. God in the universe is saying not to now. So, you know, and I think that's what's dangerous. That's what's dangerous. So anybody listening to this, I definitely think being sober and I think being very connected, and I hate to bring up marijuana on this show, but I even believe that this is a time to not be stoned through this because, you know, this is Virgo time. This is reality. This is staying healthy and clear-headed and making sure that you can heal yourself, because every time you don't, and every time you go back to that Pisces story, you have Neptune there, you got Chiron there in the south node, and there's going to be eclipses there. Woo! You will become more insane. You will lose your grip on reality, and you could fly away. So and I think it's ironic that marijuana is being legalized as fast as it can right now, all over the world, and especially the United States.
True.
And how ironic is it that they want everybody to be stoned during the most massive deception that's going to come on the planet of all time? Perfect alignment.
Yeah, interesting.
Wow.
And so everybody's getting more high and thinking that it's normal and it's okay when they're not looking and realizing that this is a time where you need to stay Virgo.
Yeah.
And it's not fun. You know, being sober is not fun. But you want to find the real truth? It's there. It's not going to be in the fantasy land anymore. Like, you eventually in fantasy land you reach a place and there's no reality. There was this old movie called The Never-Ending Story. Do you guys remember it at all in the 80s?
Yep.
And they called it the Outlands of Fantasia. That's what's happening. The nothing is showing up. And in many ways, people are you've got if you try and go as far as you can out there, you're going to reach the nothing. You're going to reach that it goes into confusion and loss and edges of nowhere. Saturn square Neptune is the ship ending out in the middle of nowhere. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, the map doesn't work. We're in the wrong place. And so that's my main message of 2016 is sobriety, you know, doing the mundane, but it will heal you. And it will help you decipher all this deception and all this information that's going to overload us this year, and especially with the reality that's so moldable and flexible because Saturn's being aspected so negatively, and especially Sagittarius where he can't hold a grip. The only sign he can't hold a grip, besides Aries where he's at its fall, but he still has some sort of control over Aries because it's just Mars. But, you know, Jupiter is bigger. Jupiter outdoes him. And this is a time to not overdo it. And, you know, Jupiter's in detriment in Virgo. And it comes into Libra in 2016. And this is a time to find, you know, the balance of your life, and to find the purity. This is about purity, because believe it or not, spiritual purity is Pisces, but physical purity, of reality purity, virginity is Virgo. And so this is a time of finding purity on both aspects. And you can only do that if you have the Virgo end first, because it does come before Pisces. And, you know, I think we're going to see a lot of people lost and nowhere to go this coming up year. And they're going to go where some of the darkest people in the world are going to lead them. You'll be able to tell they're impure. You'll be able to see it through them.
Yeah.
Pisces is so easy to see through. You can see when somebody's high as a mother, high as a kite. It's very simple to see. And you can see if it's delusional as well. And if it feels delusional, run away.
Yeah, wow.
Oh, and we're having all this opened up with real concert of planetary constellations right this Christmas. Uranus goes direct in Aries, right? And we're going to have, of course, the full moon on Christmas in Cancer, which is the home of the moon. A slowing down of Mars, ready to retrograde, and planets go direct, and all this stuff going on at once. What is this direct? What does this mean?
I think this is a breather of stepping our head out of the mud. The full moon in Cancer is going to finally allow us to kind of get some sort of recuperation. Cancer is the sign of the fourth house. It is where our home is. It is where we recharge the batteries. We realize we have a long journey ahead of us of confusion with Saturn squaring Neptune and everything we talked about. And with Uranus coming direct, this is a time of us getting repowered again, having to re-get our energy inside and recuperate our innermost feelings and get comfortable as much as we can. Because remember, the next 3 months, there is no fire. It's Capricorn, Aquarius, and then it's Pisces. This is the last season, and it's the only season with no fire. And with Saturn in a fire sign, we didn't get the full, and Sagittarius is actually the weakest of the fire signs. It's the mutable fire sign. So we're all in our life kind of out of gas. We're all out of fire. The fire's really low. And even though this is water coming in, it is Uranus in a fire sign turning on to give us some sort of fire back and give us some energy back and give us some courage back and give us some sort of clarity, because they're cardinal signs. And I think that this is a time where we can finally pick a bead in the fog and say we're going to stick to that place. It intuitively feels right. It feels comfortable, even though we don't know what's on the other side. I think this is the direction I should go. It's foggy in all directions, but this is a very kind of interesting moment where we all find our own identities in the middle of the fog. We all find our bead that we're going to stick to, and then we go on that trail. And it's like, we'll see where everybody goes and where we all end up. But if you're following a delusional path right now already, some people are going to pick a bead and end up in the most lost space of all time. So I think it's important to stay grounded through this moment, feel what feels comfortable, and more importantly, what identifies you in a way that will bring you to a place that feels right. I think that that you're not losing yourself in your delusions, that you're paying attention to some sort of reality here, while you pick this road. To me, this is a true picking of the road in the middle of fog. Also, all the planets are direct. We haven't had that for, I haven't done the research, but I think it's been since 2013. I don't think we had it in 2014. And I don't think we had it in 2015 either. So it's been like a couple years since we had all the planets direct. So this is I have to be honest, I haven't done that, but from my knowledge and following astrology every day, it's been that long since I remember reporting that. So it's a big deal that this is a moment where we all push new karma forward. And it's a little moment. It's a one little moment here. Just until Mercury goes retrograde on January 6th. And we all have to really pick a bead in the middle of the fog, you know? It's like a ship out at sea, and it's like, okay, which direction? The compass isn't working, anything. We have to trust our feelings. This is a full moon in Cancer. We got to trust our feelings. And with Uranus and Aries, we need to trust our courage and our knowing of what we are and who we are, and make sure that we're not losing ourselves in South Node delusions and Pisces and Neptune and all, you know, because people are changing who they are fast. It's like 1 minute, oh, I was this, and now, oh my gosh, I'm delusional, and I'm going to go over here. It's like, what? Are you kidding me? You just spent 20 years in this direction. Like, don't let one little thing sway you so fast. Pick your bead and stay on a bead that you've been on before, because I guarantee you this is a distraction. Pisces is distraction. Pisces is distraction. If you think about it, Virgo is the critical, exact position of something. Pisces is distraction. People are being distracted. You know, they're letting it's like everybody's becoming ADHD right now. Like, oh, I don't know where I'm going. I guess I'm going over here. This feels right. It's like, don't forget your whole understanding of where you're going and where you were supposed to go. Don't turn off the road right now just because it got foggy and confusing and a little bit of distracting. You know, it's kind of like a circus. Don't let the circus over there in the corner pull you from going where you were supposed to go. You know?
Yeah. It's very crucial times, and it's also bringing us lots of, opportunities for us. Like also we have Christmas, we have that sun which is at birth, which is like just starting the cycle. It's like some kind of the weak and also strong at once. And also we have moon, full moon, which is at its strongest. So we have that divine masculinity and feminine together. So it's up to us. It's that crossroad, whether we can rise or fall, up to us which path we're gonna choose. So it's gonna be also very interesting. And another subject we would love to ask you, Stefan, is about the moon. And there are some notions that moon is artificial satellite because, the alignment with moon and earth, like for example, when we see eclipses, the alignment with sun and moon is so perfect that sometimes it even looks like it's not natural. Like, it's just so nicely covers the sun. Like in nature, some things like, it's really very unnatural. So what are your insights here? And, if we will look from this perspective, for example, all this full moon at Christmas and so on. So how that correlates here, in your opinion?
Very simple. I'm a huge believer that the sun is the projector of the reality. Just like if you were to put a projector in a classroom and put the video on the wall. We are all coming out of the sun. This whole picture, this whole earth, this whole story, the moon, whatever. Mm-hmm. That projector can play the video however it wants to play it. We don't have the control of that video. I'm a huge believer in destiny and fate over free will. I believe that we just our free will is to understand the way we react to the picture. But I don't know if it's real, not real, and I don't think it matters at the end of the day. Because I believe that whatever the projector is pushing out, it's pushing it out for whatever reason. And I think that we're at a time where we just need to go with this flow and picture and I think realize that it is so overwhelming of how much knowledge we don't understand, and especially from what's coming out of this video projector, and realize that astrology is the only thing that helps us understand what's going on. But as far as if the Earth's artificial, if it's real, if it's anything, is any of this real? Is any of this even real? Mm-hmm. I think it doesn't matter. I mean, is all this that we're even having right now real? I mean, if you look at a video game, do you think the people in the video game believe that that's their reality? Hell yes, they believe that's their reality. Do you think the person that wrote that story in a book 100 years ago, that fiction, do you believe the people on those pages believe they're in that story? Hell yeah, that's a reality that was created.
Mm-hmm.
So we're at a time where we need to realize what created this here, what is this, and the whole idea of what's real and what's not real, I think, is thrown out the window, because at the end of the day, what is the energy pushing this story out of this sun, and where is that coming from? Nothing else matters, whether the earth is flat, round, oblong, square. Who cares? It doesn't matter. And you know what? The universe, the picture could change it. Does that make sense? Like, the picture
Yep.
changes whatever it wants to.
Mhm.
So there is no such thing, I think, as a constant. And I think there is no such thing, and I think Virgo proves that the reality is mutable. It does change, and it does morph into different physical aspects. But I think that that's the main thing to pay attention to, is that it's morphing, it's changing constantly, and this reality will constantly change. And um, who knows if what's real and what's not real. I think it's easy to tell what's real and what's not real by if it feels delusional. If and feeling delusional is a very easy explanation, because at the end of the day, you feel like you're starting to lose it a little bit. You're starting to lose your grip on what you thought. And this is a time to make sure you stay within, not letting your mind lose yourself. This is, people are going to go insane. We're going to see more people go insane in the next year than you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, words of
Mm.
wisdom.
Huh.
Really, for
Yeah.
real.
Yeah. I think
And
it's also
it's
yeah.
even it's I'm even seeing it in colleagues, like on Facebook and stuff. I'm like, whoa, like, wow, pay attention to the astrology for a
Mm-hmm.
second. Like, don't lose, like, this is where people lose it. you know
Yeah. Another
Yeah.
subject which is also very interesting is, like, we know we have in solar system that asteroid belt, which was previously known as the planet Maldek, and that planet exploded, and no one really knows what really happened there. So now we have that asteroid belt. So how that asteroid belt is now correlating to the astrology and the influence, and maybe because we know it once was a planet and had energetical influence on its environment, like many other planets influence us today. So planet is gone, but energy is still there. So how in astrology you work with those asteroids and that planet, which is now not there anymore?
Well, it's energy that's scattered, and it's scattered into different pieces, like pieces of glass scattered across. And so each piece of glass now has its own new and unique identity, like Ceres, or Chiron, of course, or you could look at Juno, or, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of this stuff that is really important, and they all have their own, substance and energies now. And I think there's so much of it scattered that right now we're only at the surface of even discovering what's even happening with these bodies, let's call them. And I use Chiron the most. I mean, Chiron's very clearly correct. Juno is very clearly correct. Ceres is fun to use, but I mean, it's, at the end of the day, I think you're gonna always find way more stuff with the eclipses, the nodes, and the planets. There's stronger energies. There's more behind them. So I think that these things are like bonus energies. They're whipped cream on top of the sundae. They're cherries on top. They're icings on the cake. They're the extra fork you don't have to have, but it's nice to have. It's like they bring out that nerdy information for the nerd that wants it, but at the end of the day, they are extra thoughts, or extra parts of our consciousness in our mind, that it's the spare closet in the house that you don't use much. I mean, like that's life. I mean, there's just those things, and so those things to me, I mean, Chiron, I think trumps them all. Um, and they're fun things, and I think that you need to see on how they connect with planets, or how they connect with the sun, or how they connect with the nodes. Then they're important, but then by themselves are just pieces of glass. It's when that you attach that piece of glass to something much bigger that it magnifies it. You know, it's like I think paying attention to the asteroids is something that is a very new art, and I think I use it and see how it's significant with planets and different, connections to things opposed to them by themselves. I think that they are pawns. I think that they are even lower than pawns. I think that they're because they're not real. They're not fully they're like pets of the zodiac that are even below pets. They're like ants. I mean, they have a purpose, but their energy is very minimal, you know? So it's kind of weird to I mean, I use them, of course, but uh, I think their connection to planets is when you need to pay attention more. But then by themselves, like when Juno squares your sun, do you really think it's a moment that's going to change your life? No. You know what I mean? Like when Chiron squares your sun, hell yeah, motherfucker. You know what I mean? It's like, oh shit. But Chiron has its own orbit, like the planets. So Chiron's the only one that kind of separated from this belt, and we might not even be part of it, and almost became a planet. You know. So I think Chiron's the most important one to pay attention to. The others are still working on. They're like, rocks on a beach that haven't turned into sand yet. They're not there yet. They're early. They're fetuses. They're minimal, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also interesting that you talked about the pieces of the glass, and now I just recently got the memory about that story. I don't remember the story name, but that was about the Snow Queen and those two kids, like, and she broke up the glass or something, and the piece of glass fell to the eye of the boy, of the Caius, his name was. And so when that glass came to his eye, he became cold, and he came to her kingdom to become a part of the kingdom. So that really just
Ah,
talks about the energies and how you said about those pieces of the glass and how they work like energies. So that's really very nice.
yeah. It's a very. I think they're very important, but I think I tried to describe of their hierarchy in the system. I mean, there's unfortunately we live in a world of hierarchy, and
Mm-hmm.
they're low on the totem pole. You know, they're not. They got a long way to go. You guys are talking to the Leo King. You know, he's super Leo here. So when it comes to the sun,
Melts
it's
the
like,
ice.
yeah, sorry, these guys are pretty low down there. You know, the king doesn't even pay attention to him. He's like, oh, those are the ants outside on the trees. You know, like he doesn't even pay attention that much. You know, he's got bodies that are paying attention to him that are revolving around him that give him much more life. The Leo needs attention, the sun needs attention, and those bodies or that belt doesn't give it much because they don't scream loud enough for the king to hear.
Yeah, that's very beautiful. Another thing we would love to maybe also ask you is about planets behind the Saturn, because Saturn is the biggest planet of our solar system, and there are some others which we don't see, with naked eyes. Like you said, they are unconscious ones, and you talked about Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in one of your presentations. And you also mentioned that they are the correlation to Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, creator, sustainer, destroyer. So maybe you can elaborate here more a bit.
Well, oh yeah, I did that interview with KRS
Yeah.
Astrology, and he's Eastern, so he used that lingo. Um, I look at it as
It's also cardinal fixed mutable as well, so the same thing, I
yeah, it
guess.
is. It is. It's it's our it's the part of our brain that we don't know or use, right? It's our unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
parts of ourself that we don't physically see. So they're very powerful aspects. Wherever Uranus is, it is dealing with you finally putting the pieces together. It's that moment when, you're walking down the street and out of nowhere you've been trying to figure something out for a month, and then just finally all the dots hit somehow. That last piece came in that was unpredictable, and boom, it's the force between the dots. It's not the dots themselves, it's the force that connects the dots between them and puts them together. It's the puzzle pieces that finally align. That's the energy, and that's not a physical thing, that's a magical thing. All three of them are magical. Neptune is a soft and subtle energy that hits you in like you're drowning, like there's not much you can do, but it leaves you into this place of mysticism and imagination. And it is like our dreams, right? It is our non-physical, visual, aspect that brings us visions that are not real. So it's about vision, but more importantly than that, it's also about delusion. It's about where we can create a reality that doesn't exist. It's not real. It's in our own petri dish that's not real. It never becomes tangible either. Neptune never becomes tangible. It's the imagination of that girl across the room, and then you undressing her and taking her home into your bed to masturbate, but never touching her. I thought it was a very graphic thing, but that's Neptune. It's that part of ourself that never actually sees it, but tries to live it as much as we can.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Pluto is, of course, it rules death, but what it rules is the long transformational process of things. So it's always in the background, eating away like an anteater or like a termite eating wood. It's not going to tear it down in a week. It's going to tear it down over a decade or more of you finally getting to the bottom of something. It's the exposure. It realizes that, oh my gosh, I was smoking for 12 years, and I finally realized through lung disease that, I got this. And it's not the physical aspect of it, it's that you are ready to make a change. I need to stop smoking now. It's like, it's those moments in your life that hit you that make you never go backwards again. They make you go forward in a very difficult, transformational way. And that can be very difficult sometimes, but it's very, very connected with not so much destroying your life, but bringing life to your life and putting an end to what's already dead. You realize when you go through a Pluto change that it was already at its end. It's not that it's coming through to destroy you like that's where I kind of have a hard time with Eastern, is because it's a little old school, scary, fearful. It's a lot like the Catholic Church, Eastern, I'm going to be honest, astrology, because it's based off, like, let's say bishops in the church or personalities that were astrologers and their belief of astrology, and then all these other astrologers following that way. That'd be like if the Leo King came out with his own astrology and everybody followed it. That's how Eastern works.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you got to be very careful with Eastern, because you're dealing with egos who created astrology and their way, and their followers using them. All Eastern astrologers are too pussy to create their own astrology and collectively start to come together and advance forward. They stay and go, no, this guy from 1200 said this, and that must be true.
Mm-hmm.
And I do not want to move forward. What's Chiron? You know what I mean? Like, it's the oldest, like, patriarchal astrology system that doesn't advance. And unfortunately, they have no idea of how Western works. all you see in Eastern astrology is, oh, Western is fake. It doesn't follow the planets in the correct position. They will do anything to say that. It's because that they have no concept of syncretism. Zero.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately. They do their astrology based off much more, story-like things from people who created these things so long ago, and it never has advanced forward at all. Even their charts look like it's from 1974.
Mm-hmm.
But and I think that's something to pay attention to with what's coming up here in the world, and with the outer planets. Is Western's the one that included outer planets in astrology, not Eastern. Eastern kind of then had to do something eventually and threw those terms to them. But Western astrologers are the ones that have always implemented the 3 outer planets and have given them their rulerships and have given them their personality traits. And they're come from Greek mythology, not, I mean, it's like, it's both are using mythology. But if we trace the deepest roots of astrology, it goes to Mesopotamia and it goes to Greek. It always does. The Vedic side kind of has a dark side to it. I hate to be very honest. It's very dark. It's very like your kid's going to die at 6 years old, so have a nice one. It's like, what? Like, and so I think that there's a very kind of scary side to Vedic astrology, because any astrology that doesn't want to advance forward or use new planets, or more importantly, get off old systems from people who have been dead for over 1,000 years, that's a little scary, because that again is now dealing with kind of like a Catholic Church. And I believe Vedic astrology is like the Catholic Church of astrology. It's like, okay, you want to go play by that old school way? Okay, go over there and play that game. And if you want to go to the new way and the innovative way and, taking in these new things, the only place to go is Western. And it integrates things. We integrate progressions. We use solar arcs. We use all these amazing charts and all these amazing techniques that would blow Vedic astrologers out of the water and in their minds if they only could even realize. But they've never gone past, 1,000 years ago of research, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they really don't advance at all. And I feel kind of bad for a lot of them, because they're all waiting for approval from another astrologer to say that they're doing it the way that old astrologer did it. It's kind of like, oh yeah, like, that system, Yoshi or Gogoshi or whatever, I can't even say all these names. Like there's no empowering in the Vedic community, and you don't see any Vedic astrologers coming up to be leaders, and they don't do good horoscopes. Their horoscopes are the worst. There's no horoscope. They don't do a horoscope.
Yeah.
They don't, and they don't do a collective understanding of the world and where it's at. So I feel like it's kind of a lost area. Mayan astrology, at least, is about understanding kind of the dimension of time. And unfortunately, I think Vedic has kind of gotten really lost and really confused. And I think the Vedic astrologers that mix with astrology are good. But I think the Vedic astrologers that only use Vedic, you'll always see a lot of holes. And there's because they miss syncretism. It's like you need to connect everything. And Vedic do not like to connect everything. They say no. They say no more than they say yes. And
it's like with the symbolism, it's the same thing. We can learn a lot about the old symbolism. It's all over the internet. But if you look around in your everyday life, how the symbolism is used today, that's something we can only discover with syncretism together by looking at what is actually going on now and not just studying these old things. Just look at the symbolism of apple, for example. The apple, the fruit of knowledge, and it's the iPhone that everybody's buying, and the apple makes us aware of the eye, because who took that bite out of there? Obviously, that was you. And you keep buying gigabytes of storage, so that's how they use the symbolism here. That's really important to marry that with the old knowledge with the new knowledge, just like you said.
And this is a really good thing that you brought up, because at the end of the day, the last time Neptune was in Pisces was in the 1840s, 50s, and into 60s. And it was the same thing. In America, it was slavery or not slavery. But it was, are we going to move forward into this new energy or not? And unfortunately, we're all at the same place now on a more extreme aspect than we've ever been. This is a time where we literally have to see what side are you on. With Pluto and Capricorn, with Uranus and Aries finishing up, with Neptune and Pisces, with Saturn now in Sag and digging up the truth. It's like, if you're going to go play in the sandbox with all that old stuff and never move forward, you're going to lose. That's what history proves. And this is a time where things that are moving forward and more evolutionary and more forward thinking and connecting dots are going to win. And if the dots aren't fully all connecting, it's probably not right, And that's simple stuff. But unfortunately, I mean, I hate to be the person to call out Vedic, but it's like, man, we want you to join the team and move into the future. But if you're not willing to, even look, I mean, how can you even, take it seriously anymore? Because it's this. I mean, we're seeing the same thing with Christianity and churches and stuff. People aren't taking them as serious anymore, because it's like, geez, same thing's happening. Now there's like, new religions forming and new understandings of Christ. And this is the time of new religions. And that's what my presentation is going to be about in 2016, is showing what happened in the Roman Empire, especially with paganism, and how and why Christianity rose up. It was a very difficult time for the Roman Empire, because all these cults started rising up, and people didn't know what to do, and people were following different ones, and it was almost like so it's a very, we're coming into the same period now, and it's going to be a very weird one, I think.
Yeah.
And
we're coming to a period of the Saturn, of the father of the Saturn, Uranus, the spiritual air, the Aquarius, and even the word Aquarius is like aqua, and Aries, like that watery Aries. And again, Aries is related to the beginning of the cycle, the spring. So again, we have that spiritual air uniting all together into one through that Uranus energy. So that's kind of interesting. And the wheel now is only began to spin again, so we have to face and be very patient, because energy has to be spun again just to work in the full pace. Because all of us thinking like 2012 happened, so we have to see big changes happening the other day already, but we have to wait in patience and just to work ourselves, because no one just gonna come and do anything if only we want. So
I agree completely.
Yeah. And also another thing which we wanted to ask, many of us experienced the huge awakening in the year 2008. So what happened in that year? So also we know that Pluto entered Capricorn, and Capricorn is the builder. So many of us experienced that major shift during that year.
Yeah, Pluto and Capricorn, I think, was a major whoa moment. That was just, I think, such an extreme time, because Pluto leaving Sagittarius, it was a very positive moment. And then out of nowhere, you feel the wrath of Capricorn. It's so different. It's so serious. You start to realize that, your whole life is about to change, where you know, you build up on all these hopes in Sag, and you get all this knowledge that you're not realizing is in the background that you finally reach, right? Pluto is, it's the end of Pluto that's powerful. It's not the beginning. It's the end. So it was the end of Pluto and Sag we felt, where we all had to step into new beliefs into our life. We haven't seen the end of Pluto Capricorn yet, when that's the moment when we've reached the end and the new beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, it's not that Pluto entered Capricorn, it's that Pluto exited Sag. That's what was so powerful, was we all now had to change our beliefs and start to see the visions that are realistic in the reality that we are in.
Yeah. And also another thing which is also very interesting and really correlates to the subject is the global warming. You know, we all hear that, you know, if there is a major shift happening in global warming, you know, the winter is becoming warmer and warmer. And, you know, all of people are saying that's only humans doing the you know, the harm to environment. But maybe it's not the only humans. Yes, of course, we are just doing lots of bad things, but maybe it's not only humans, but it's also the heating of the sun. And also we know that Saturn is now changing the energy flow, and also the time, you know, understanding is different now. Time runs faster, all of us are feeling that. So because of that, sun is heating, and also the earth is better receiving that energy of that warmth. So maybe that's some kind of the natural process we are feeling. And so what do you see here?
Well, number one, we have only been following weather for about 200 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if we go back, I mean, we really don't know what the hell has happened with weather. I mean, that's the truth as far as actually recording it. You know, we are in Neptune and Pisces. Neptune rules weather, and especially weird weather. And I think that we're at a confusing period where nothing is known. And so we need to see what it all is. So I think that I think that the weather is a reflection of the confusion of what's happening inside human consciousness, because I believe that we are all, of course, the projector's projecting this, but out of this projector is a collective conscious of humans that are confused. So, of course, the weather is going to get crazy. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, we're going to feel these weird, you know, events come out, because that's what we're externalizing.
Yeah.
So I think the weather is just a weird heating up of the same as that the sun's heating up, the same as that Earth's heating up. More people are here, more people. It's getting hotter. We're figuring things out more and more. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's the natural environment that's around. So I don't think it's. I think it's so much simpler than people are making it to be. It's like, well, there's more people on Earth than ever, and of course, spirituality is intense. Our awakening is intense. Is our going. Technology is advancing. I think technology is a way of our spiritual souls. It's a reflection of what it looks like on how
Mm-hmm.
how we're connecting, right? Like
Yeah.
how we're connecting, right? It's like a natural way to look at it. So of course the weather is going to get hotter, or colder, whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
but who knows? I think that the you know, it's not been enough technology to know. I mean, they've only been recording for 200 years.
Yeah. I'm also very curious to ask you about, maybe you have been investigating the Atlantis story and what happened to 10,500 BC, because we know that there was some major flood, you know, geologists already just claiming that. And also, you know, we just also investigated the Egyptology, and we talked with such Egyptologists like Stephen Mailer and many others who have been investigating the erosion, and they saw that some kind of the global warming happened there, and maybe some lost civilization was lost during that time. So maybe you have done some investigation in astrology around that date.
You don't even need to do the astrology. You can just do the galactic calendar. That's 12,000 years ago, and
Yeah.
that's exactly where we were at on the other side of the coin of the galactic shift point. So that's when the sun started going below the ecliptic of the galaxy instead of rising above like we are now. So it's exactly the opposite. not the new spring of the galaxy, but that was the fall of the galaxy. Just how we moved from the sun into Libra. Now, if you think about where we're at in the new times, right? This is us moving into Aries, like the spring in the galactic cycle. And then it was moving into the Libra cycle, the fall. So, that was just the beginning, I think, of flooding and destruction and those kind of things. I think it was a long, long fall. And then 6,000 years went, and that's the bottom. And that's when there's nothing. I think in recorded, that's like the worst, right? Then the next 6,000 years has been a buildup to this. So this next 6,000 years is the buildup to the greatest peak. It will also be the same binary star system of the ages the stars coming closer. It'll also be everything else just rising in greatness. But I think that you don't look at the astrology of Earth for those kind of events. You look at the galactic cycle first, always. That's the first hand on the clock. If that makes sense. Like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because that's where we're at, it's like, 2015, here we are, the sun's starting to rise in the galaxy. It's in a positive position for the next 12,000 years, opposed to it being in the lower half, like the last 12,000 years. So it's a totally different ball game now. It's instead of closing up shop, we're opening shop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Atlantis was closing shop, And whatever happens 12,000 years from now will be us closing shop again.
Mm-hmm.
When we call it Leo Kingville. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, that was a joke.
Evil laughter.
I'm a double Leo. You got to be careful with the moon in Taurus. Oh no. Yeah.
Yep. Don't mess with the Leo's hair.
Yeah, don't mess with our hair and don't mess with our moon and Tauruses. At the end of the day, we know what we want.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Which brings us right back to your show and possibly towards the end of this show. What can you tell us? Just I know everybody's waiting for your video, but what's gonna happen just next month? What's gonna be the first month of our year like? Just a quick little monthly forecast from you for our show.
Well, Mercury and Jupiter go retrograde. So that's a big deal. That's more mind stuff going backwards. And Mercury is going retrograde in Aquarius and then coming back into Capricorn. Weird, because Mercury went direct at 0 degrees of Aquarius last year, and now it's going retrograde at 0 degrees of Aquarius. So this is going to be a very weird mind month and how our minds work, especially as Neptune now is going to start moving forward very fast again. And Saturn as well is going to be getting off of its square to Neptune. So there's going to finally be, I think, a lot of answers that we've been waiting for. It's going to look different than we thought, but it's going to be revealing answers that we've been, I think, so clouded with. So I think January is a month of a lot of things being figured out mentally, answers coming that we were looking for, and Mars as well comes into Scorpio, its natural home, and pushes things forward with a retrograde or not. And the sun in Capricorn, it doesn't matter. This shit's moving forward even when things are backwards, I believe that every Mercury retrograde has its own power, that you can't treat every Mercury retrograde the same.
Mm-hmm.
And this one's having Mars home in Scorpio. This one's having Jupiter retrograde. This one's having, more importantly, it's a time where I think we're all finally coming out of some confusion for the last couple months. So we're moving forward and kind of like using the calculator on the fly and getting the answers, and we're going to move forward whether we like it or not, kind of energy. Like Capricorn's going to do it whether it wants to or not. It needs to stay on the track, on the trail, plus, the sun is going to conjunct Pluto and Uranus and kind of be the last highlight of the Pluto-Uranus square of the last 3 years, because the next time that the sun comes into a cardinal sign will be Aries. Uranus will be way up in Aries, and Pluto will be, going retrograde. And so that'll be the official end, That'll be the end. So this is going to be the last month of, the weird static of the last 3 years, finally getting some information out of the fog, and truly having to push forward even when, there's still so much information to gather. It's like we're going to be doing it on the fly, like, okay, got to figure this out, even though I got to keep moving,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't hold on to stuff, people. I think there's so much to take away from this show. Stay humble. Don't hold on to just one floating piece of wood. There's so many out there. Just work with that trust and work with the people that are supportive of themselves in the first place and of such ideas, and are not going backwards and going nuts.
Yes, I completely agree with you.
All right, well, David, it's been such a great time it's been so awesome to have you on here and to hear you from these other perspectives, not just your forecast stuff that of course we love and watch all the time, but wow, this has been great. I'm taking so much from the show, and hope in the future we can do this again.
Definitely. I love you two. You two are awesome, and I love what you're doing. And I only do shows now that get deep like this. So it was nice to accept your guys' offer. I don't do many anymore because I feel like I want the deep questions, and you guys gave them to me. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you too. And if we know you're super busy, but if there's any chance, that we could get together on a regular basis, maybe just like once a month, and just exchange some deeper thoughts, we'd love that too, if it allows, of course.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see after January with this Mercury retrograde and Jupiter retrograde, and
yeah.
I think there's a lot of stuff that we all have to figure out, and it's been on hold for a while. It's been on hold because of this Saturn-Neptune square. It's like we've all been kind of like frozen a little bit. So we're all about to thaw out a little bit.
Let's thaw it out with the heat of the sun. Leo King.
Coming back on, yeah.
Sweet.
Well, yeah. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you, and happy holidays, and be safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Much love.
All right, much love. Later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
watching it bring you to your knees. Ah, yes, I love it, I do. That's right. Come get it. Yeah. Let's go. What is this profound pleasure? This Schadenfreude. I don't want to be happy for it. Yet it strikes a chord. I've waited for it. Walking on to a vibe. Guess you can do that, but when I try. What is this profound pleasure? This Schadenfreude. I don't want to be happy for it. Yet it strikes a chord. I've waited for it. Walking on to a vibe. Guess you can do that, but when I try. That's right. Come get it. Yeah. Let's go. Walking on to a vibe. Guess you can do that, but when I try. That's right. Come get it. Yeah. Let's go. That's right. Come get it. Yeah. Let's go. What is this profound pleasure? This Schadenfreude. I don't want to be happy for it. Yet it strikes a chord. I've waited for it. La douleur exquise. Die Schadenfreude. Watching it bring you to your knees. Ah, yes, I love it, I do. Seeing your heart grow cold springs mine anew. This profound pleasure. This profound pleasure.